Hi guys, so I'm going to be presenting on Syn attacks, also known as synchronization attacks. So what is a Syn attack? A Syn attack is a type of a denial of service attack. So here the main aim of the attacker is to make the machine or network, for example a server, inaccessible to intended users. A Syn attack utilizes the communication protocol of the Internet, that is the TCP/IP, to attack its target systems by bombarding it with Syn requests. I'll explain more of this in the following slides. A Syn attack is also known as a TCP Syn attack or a Syn flood attack, as it will be bombarding its target system with many Syn requests, hence the synchronization flood. How does a Syn flood attack work? So a Syn flood attack attacks and exploits the TCP three-way handshake connection and its limitation in handling of open connections. So the three-way handshake connection is basically a method that is used by the TCP/IP network to create a connection between a client and a server. So every time a client wants to connect to the server, they use this method to connect to the server. The method requires the client and the server to exchange synchronization and acknowledgement packets before the actual data communication begins. So how does this three-way handshake connection work? When a client system wants to start a TCP connection, it sends a synchronized message or a request to the server. The server then responds to this request by sending what we call a synchronization acknowledgement response or a SYN ACK to the client. Then the client answers the SYN ACK with an ACK to the server. After the completion of the sequence of packets sending and receiving, the TCP connection is then open for communication. So basically, that's how the TCP three-way handshake connection works. This is basically an illustration of what I've explained in the previous slide of the three-way handshake. So for the attacker to attack the server, the attacker basically exploits the three-way handshake. That's how they attack the server. So with the Syn attack, the malicious client does not send the expected ACK to the server. The server would then wait for its Syn ACK packet for some time and cannot close down the connection. This leaves a half-open connection between the server and the client. The attacker will keep on sending more send requests, leaving many half-open connections. This causes the server to malfunction or crash, and as a result, service to legitimate clients will be denied. So basically, there are three ways in which Syn attacks occur. The first one is direct Syn flood attack. The second one is Syn spoofed attack. And then the third one is distributed denial of service Syn attack. So in direct Syn flood attack, the malicious client sends a Syn request to the server. Then the server acknowledges this request by sending a Syn ACK response to the client. But instead of sending an ACK response to the server, the malicious client keeps on sending more Syn requests to the server, leaving many half-open connections, and then causing the server to malfunction or crash. And in the end, the server will not be able to service like a legitimate client when a legitimate Syn request is sent to the server. The second way in which Syn attacks occur is called a Syn spoofed attack. So with the first example, the direct Syn flood attack, the client uses his or her own IP address, which makes them vulnerable to be detected. But in the Syn spoofed attack, the client utilizes spoofed or forged IP addresses to send Syn packets to the server. The server then sends Syn ARC responses to the actual forged IP addresses. But because the spoofed source didn't send the Syn request in the first place, they will not respond to the Syn ARC responses. Usually in this case, the attacker uses IP addresses which are not being used or which are not in use, making sure that the Syn ARC responses are never responded to. The third example is distributed denial of service Syn attack. So here the malicious client uses several computers to attack the server. This combination of several computers is called a botnet. So the client sends many send requests using this botnet to the server. Then the server responds to this request, but then the client never responds back to the server for the complete three-way handshake, such that when a legitimate client tries to access the server will not be able to respond to the client. How to protect against Syn flood attacks? There are many ways to protect against Syn flood attacks, but I'm going to focus on 4. The first one is to increase backlog queue. So basically, the operating system allocates a certain memory to hold these half-open connections between the client and the server, creating a synchronization backlog. So once the limit for half-open connections is reached, the server starts dropping new connections. So in order to avoid denial of service, the limit for open connections can be increased such that requests from legitimate clients can be serviced. The second way in which we can protect against Syn flood attacks is recycling the old half connections. So in this method, the old half connections in the backlog queue can be deleted in order to create more memory for new connections. The third way is using synchronization cookies. So with synchronization cookies, the server responds to the ARC packet to each request, and then it drops the Syn requests, removing the request from the server, thereby leaving the port open for new connections. So if the Syn request was from a legitimate client, an ARC response is then sent back to the server, and then the server then reconstructs the Syn entry, then allows a connection. The third way in which we can protect, the fourth way in which we can protect against flood attacks is using firewall filtering. With firewall filtering, a firewall was used to detect and filter Syn packets that come from clients. That is basically validating incoming packets from clients before allowing a connection. That is all on Syn flood attacks. Thank you.